Drones, please take your seats for ReadWriteMix. Welcome, this is the second ReadWriteMix of 2014. For those of you who are not familiar with ReadWrite, we are a technology publication. We actually turn 11 years old this April. We're really excited about our birthday. And we are very grateful to our parent company, Save Media. This is our headquarters, and they have given us Say Space so that we can hold ReadWriteMix. So thank you, Say. And thank you all for coming here tonight. But you're really going to be excited for the inventor you're here to see, Eric Migicovsky, CEO of Pebble. Pebbles, Ramona, are you joining us? She usually jumps on stage at some point. Come on, you know you want to. There you go. So, let me start off with a question for the audience. Who here is wearing a Pebble right now? Raise your hand. All right, cut the lights. Okay, now you know what to do, Pebblers. Shake it. Let's see that backlight. Right on. All right, let's bring the lights back on. So for those of you who are totally confused by what just happened, Eric, what is a smartwatch?
What is a smartwatch? Well, I guess 6 years ago it would have been something a little bit different.
Made by Microsoft.
Made by Microsoft. Well, that was about 10 years ago. Yeah, those were the days. Nowadays, a smartwatch is something that a wearable computer that people wear that connects to the internet, usually through a smartphone, and brings information ambiently to your wrist and really onto your body. So Pebble is a smartwatch that works with iPhone and Android smartphones, and it brings notifications, alerts, emails, as well as a whole bunch of different apps onto your body.
And those apps are really a point of differentiation for Pebble, because we've heard a lot of noise about kind of wearable platforms, but you have an app ecosystem operating today.
Starting to. We just launched our app store two months ago now. So it's coming along. It's pretty early stages even for us, and I think it's encouraging to see not just the people here who've already written apps and showed me apps that are running on Pebble, but the fact that there are a lot of people hacking and building on the platform all around the world. When we launched on Kickstarter 2 years ago, it's almost exactly 2 years ago, we had no clue how much people would be interested in hacking on their devices. We had launched a watch previous to that had an SDK that was slightly alpha. It was almost like an Arduino. You had about 10 kilobytes worth of free space to code your app in. Now it's a little bit more, but yeah, we just didn't really expect the sheer enthusiasm that people have had. It's been great because it started off as a product that offered notifications and emails and alerts and a bit of sports and fitness stuff on your wrist. But there's Bitcoin wallet apps that I saw today, medical alert bracelet sort of apps for your Pebble, and every day I kind of log on to the App Store and see a new app come up. It's pretty cool.
That must be a good feeling. How many developers do you have so far? Again, it's early days.
There's around 13 or 14,000 developers who've been active in the last 2 or 3 months on Pebble.
Wow, that's for something that's only been around for 2 months.
Yeah.
And how many Pebbles are there out there? What's the market for these developers?
There are, as of today, over 400,000 Pebbles in the field. Right? And that's been over the last 13 or 14 months so far.
So big numbers for a new category, but compared to the other devices that are smartphones and tablets,
something like 700 million Android phones shipped last year or something like that. Yeah, we've got a ways to go. I think I'm very hesitant to say that we have shown some early success. I think in some ways validated this section of the market that we're in. But I'm looking forward to the next step. And I think you hit on it right at the beginning, which is the idea that this is a platform. It's not something that's just going to be a single product necessarily sitting on your wrist, but we launched our second product in January, and it's going to be really interesting to see where it goes.
So the second product, that's a Pebble Seal. I am sporting the original Pebble. I actually kind of like the chunky plastic look, but are you finding more people are opting for this deal even?
Yeah, around 60% of our customers on our website right now are picking Pebble CEO.
And so 60%, so the majority are actually going for the higher end product.
Yeah, it might also be because it's not available in stores yet, but I mean, that's how it goes.
And speaking of, you recently launched the Pebble in some Target stores.
Yeah, all Target stores actually. We're going to be rolling out over the next month or two.
Wow.
And that's on top of your first retail partner was Best Buy.
Yeah, and retail's been interesting. I mean, so we launched on Kickstarter, so it was very much like the expansion that we had in the early days was 100% a factor of our success. Figuring out how to kind of market the product to the world, really. More than, I think around 45% of our backers on Kickstarter came from outside of the US. So it's not particularly an American or US-based product at all. On our website now, we do 60 to 70% of our traffic is outside the US. We ship to 150 countries around the world. And I think it's a sign that hardware is not something that's going to start in one particular country and then kind of like slowly work its way out. It's going to be worldwide right from the get-go. I mean, just look at some of the major names that came off of Kickstarter itself. We just got our Form 1 printer in the mail, which is this like beautifully designed, amazingly fine, high-quality 3D printer that was $3,000 or something like that, which is a steal compared to, I think, the big 3D printers are still $20,000 to $30,000, if not more. And that came directly from these MIT Media Lab hackers that built what we're using for prototyping the next generation of stuff.
And that's going out in the world. So
yeah,
the good thing is you have a global market. The bad news is you kind of have global competition, and not just the big ones. I mean, so let's talk about that for a moment.
Of course.
As you referenced, people were attempting this kind of smartwatch idea, at least kind of the notification.
Did anyone own a Spot, a Microsoft Spot?
Microsoft Spot. Anyone want to confess?
We have one or two in the office.
Let me tell you, you are a real werehole if you have Microsoft Spot.
Yeah, so the idea of competitors in the space is not something completely new. When I started working on this in 2008, I built it because there was nothing that I really saw in the market that I wanted. Sony Ericsson had partnered with Fossil to create this kind of like fancy analog digital watch that cost $399. And it was cool. It only had 10-character displays which showed you who was calling. It wasn't really built for the smartphone age. And so when we started working on it back in 2008, we were saying, okay, well, what if we reimagined a smartwatch for a smartphone that would be paired with a smartphone? And we built it for ourselves. We really just wanted it. It was a product that we wanted. And then we started showing it off to people. I was based in Waterloo, Ontario at the time, which is the home of Blackberry, Research in Motion. And we started showing it around to people. And we ended up, our first product exclusively worked with Blackberry devices.
Wow.
So that was
this the Impulse?
Yeah, it was the Impulse. 2008,
actually
perhaps
have one.
used 2008 era for being, not as future such.
Actually, people make this mistake. They look at Blackberry now and they think it was always down in the dumps, but it actually was on this phenomenal growth.
Oh yeah, they were kicking ass in 2008. Everyone had a Blackberry.
Through 2010, and it took that long for the iPhone to kind of cut
up to speed.
Cut their knees out from under them.
We came down and we did Y Combinator in 2011, and then we saw this thing called the iPhone. A lot of people were using it, and we decided that the next version of our product would work with iPhone.
It is interesting though that when you're in Canada, surrounded probably
by people using Blackberries, yes.
That shapes your.
They still do. I was back in Vancouver, and I've never seen so many Blackberries.
Yeah, no, it's.
What's interesting is
it always kind of makes me scratch my head when I go to New York and I see these weird devices.
I heard that Blackberry's coming out with the Bold 9900 again or something, which is a great phone, but they're actually like stopping selling, or like they're bringing back the old operating system or something like that because people love the keyboards and love the like original Blackberry.
I had a Trio for a long time, and I thought I could never give up the keyboard. I also actually wrote on ReadWrite last year an open letter to people like you, and I said, hands off my wrists. I do not want wearable devices, and here I am wearing 2 of them. This is your fault, Eric Migicovsky.
I'm sorry.
How dare you make a device so good that I actually want to wear it?
We've been, I think that, I mean, that's an interesting point. So a lot of people ask, like, people aren't wearing watches. Why are you making a product that, people aren't going to want because, no one's wearing watches? And I think, it's interesting. I actually view it kind of as an opportunity. If people aren't wearing watches, then we don't have a competitor that we have to dethrone to get onto their wrist. That's the optimistic way of looking at it. Obviously, the pessimistic way is that people use cell phones. And so I think what we had to do, what we had to prove, is that there was so much more value for putting something smart on your wrist than just being able to dig your phone out of your pocket. And so it was up to us to define what that category would be. And so we're still doing it. I mean, it's a work in progress as usual. Yeah. But I'd say it's coming along.
It's so interesting. When I started testing the Pebble, I thought I would use it primarily as a fitness device. That's kind of my passion right now. I'm writing a lot about that for ReadWrite. And I downloaded some apps. I tried it out. Some things were interesting, like a Tabata timer for high intensity interval training. But I found actually that the core functions, the notifications and the phone calls, were so much more useful to me. In fact, I feel like the phone calls come to my Pebble faster than they light up my phone.
It's possible.
And I'm not sure how you work that magic, but it's starting to get that point where it's more useful at certain functions of the phone than the phone itself.
So that's something that we had to deal with. And so I was talking about why people put it on their wrist and why we're kind of getting watches back on people's wrists. And I think what's interesting is that for each and every person, there's different things that they do. Even when it comes to notifications, people have different use cases. Some people love getting their Google Hangouts notifications on their wrist, and other people just turn off everything but phone call notification. I think that's really cool. I think that if we can create a product that provides value to different people kind of on their terms, then that's something that we want to make. We'd love to make a product that kind of meshes into your life, and rather than forcing you to kind of conform to the product, it really just lets you live your life in a little bit of a better way. And so over time, secretly Pebble, will do more and more things in your daily life. But at least it's useful in those first couple days of trying it out.
Yeah, that's getting that first day experience, I think, is really key. Bluetooth World is a conference that is taking place this week. We had a reporter down there, and there's a lot of talk about Bluetooth right now, whether it is holding back the wearables movement. Do you have a point of view on that?
I think it's holding back. We've got a couple of people up there as well. No, I mean, Bluetooth is amazing. We couldn't do what we're doing 5 years ago because for 2 reasons, or 3 reasons. One is people didn't have a connection to the internet that they're carrying around in their pocket, and now pretty much everyone does, except for underground. So
yeah,
LTE doesn't work too well. Battery life technology has come a long ways, and Bluetooth. I mean, sure, there's a lot to be said for an organization that has a special interest group, the Bluetooth SIG, that controls a lot of the profiles and support. But things are moving. Like Apple pushed Bluetooth LE really far forward last year when they released the Apple Notification Center service, which is a Bluetooth LE protocol that enables any Bluetooth LE device to pair with your. So someone's tweeting at us and we're getting notifications at the same time.
Oh, I know. Yeah, that's great. You notice we're both lighting up.
Yeah, they're both.
Actually, what's great is I'm going to be taking questions via Twitter, and a colleague is going to be sending those to me via Google Hangouts. So I'll be getting that right on my wrist. It's, we couldn't do this ReadWriteMix without it.
And so people who are tweeting, they probably see their message pop up right there.
Yeah, so it's great instant gratification.
But going back to the LE thing, Bluetooth LE, I totally believe is going to do a lot to change the world. I think that there's going to be more and more sensors and clothing and items in your daily life that use LE, iBeacon and other things. And one of the really cool things about Pebble is since it has a Bluetooth LE radio in it and it can talk to LE devices. We haven't rolled out the APIs yet, but it's in the works. Like we're planning to enable Pebble to talk directly to heart rate monitor straps, bicycle power sensors, iBeacons. Pretty much our goal is to figure out what are the devices that add context to your life. Like what indicates where you are, what you're doing, or what devices you're working with, and how can those be controlled or integrated somehow into Pebble.
So that's interesting. It's sort of like, if you think about the early days of PDAs, they were always synced to a PC. The Palm Pilot had to work with a PC.
Yeah. Hot sync.
Yeah, exactly. And it wouldn't work otherwise. And it actually took off. The Palm Pilot took off because of that kind of symbiotic relationship, whereas past attempts at PDAs, like I think what was the AT&T one, the Navigator, or?
Oh, yeah. Well, Newton was similar. It didn't actually sync too
right,
well.
Newton, all of those devices which tried to be independent failed. Right now, the Pebble is very dependent on the smartphone, but you're saying that it could become more and more independent, sort of like the iPhone, for that matter. You had to sync with iTunes in the early days. Now everything's over the cloud.
I think that's fair, and I think it's kind of natural, because what we're doing is building kind of the first operating system that's purpose designed for a wearable platform. Like even when you look at some of the competitors like Google, Android, Wear, I mean, they're kind of using the existing older generation technology and trying to put it into a new form factor. And that rarely works. I mean, there's a lot of things that there's a lot of opportunity when you have a new form factor to kind of just create different user experiences and experiment. And I think you hit the nail on the head with talking about Palm Pilot. It wasn't a desktop operating system. It wasn't something like that in the early days push personal, and computing forward. It was really like this new operating system that ran on a Dragon Ball 80 processor with like a miniature amount of RAM. That really.
It was a Motorola processor.
Yeah, they used the same processor for like eight years straight or something like that.
It might have run a Mac like a decade before.
And what's interesting is now we have practically the same processor on Pebbles. So if you look at it, Mac to pocket computer to wearable. It's kind of interesting.
It's just shrinking it down.
Yeah, pretty soon we're going to have like 8-bit processor, 32-bit processors running.
Yeah. So you actually view Bluetooth as an enabler, and you don't feel like it's moving too slowly at this point.
I think what's cool with Bluetooth LE is that a lot of the profiles are built on top of the base, the core specs. You don't have to really wait for the SIG to kind of catch up. But maybe upstairs, in somewhere at the conference, they're actually working very hard on that. But we'll see.
And so you do view a future where the Pebble is not kind of tied to the phone.
Yeah, so for example, there's like this awesome app called Pebble which is a Starbucks app for Pebble, where you can actually pay for Starbucks. Like if you go for a run, you can just swipe your Pebble and pay at Starbucks using the barcode from your watch. But why does that have to come from your phone? Why can't it be enabled at the Starbucks location, just served by some sort of like iBeacon Bluetooth LE system? That's something that we're investigating and figuring out how we can play a pretty important role.
And I understand those routers are coming. So the idea is your simple device can use Bluetooth to communicate to a hub.
There's different progressions. Like it starts with the most basic case, which is the Pebble recognizing that there's an iBeacon around you, and that's kind of the first thing that we'll be looking at. And then over time, definitely be looking at more routing scenarios and stuff like that.
And I think that it's very interesting to think about what kind of devices would be enabled by not having to pair it with them.
Also think about how a lot of devices that have sensors are not really in a good spot to have a display. Like say, for example, if you're wearing some sort of like Under Armour clothing that monitors your stress level and your heart rate, you don't really want to have a display built into your spandex or something like that. It would be much more awesome if you could just relay the information to something that you're wearing already.
Yeah.
And so we're paying close attention to that.
This is my big frustration right now is I just want to get the heart rate from a device on my chest to a device on my wrist.
It's coming.
And it's just, I don't understand why this is so hard.
Well, there are, not to recommend other products until we see what we do, but there are some other products that do that. They're just super closed, like you couldn't write an app then that consumes that heart rate data, which is crazy. I mean, it just makes sense that now that we have wearable computing that you can hack on, it would make sense that you could just customize that display or write your own app or something like that, or even download a friend's app. Right. That's the best sort of display for that situation.
That openness creates possibilities.
Yeah.
So let's talk about Pebble the business. You have actually been profitable for almost a year now.
Probably since the day that we went on Kickstarter. Yeah.
That is amazing.
Up to that point, for 4 years, we were not quite profitable.
So there is that to make up for. But,
yes,
You still have a lot of unsold Alerta impulses.
There are a couple impulses lying around the office, mainly as a sign to an entrepreneur like I was, to not overbuild your inventory. It's one of the biggest lessons that I ever learned. Very nearly killed the company, but like you got to be careful.
So you actually keep those around as kind of a
They
lesson?
were part furniture at the house office that we had. We just put like a table over top and used them as.
That's a good lesson to.
Oh, it sticks with you. It's physically there, reminding you that you have like $150,000 worth of products sitting under your table. Maybe they'll be actually worth something in the future. That'd be pretty cool.
Collector's items.
Yeah.
Maybe you can use the eBay app on Pebble to sell them.
We give them away, like people come by for a hackathon at Pebble. We give them this little memento from the past. And,
yeah, that's
it's fun.
It's fun. I actually picked one up when I visited your office. Speaking of my visit to Pebble headquarters, I was very surprised to see your returns area. I was expecting stacks and stacks, just out of the sheer volume.
Yeah, we do all of our returns and warranty stuff through the office right now. So maybe someday, hopefully not, we'll have to grow out of the office for doing that. But yeah, for now it's kind of nice. And again, it's kind of that similar lesson that if you have your mistakes, and we do view kind of like every time that we have to like return or replace or something with Pebble, it's kind of like us screwing up a little bit. And having that in the office is a present, saying like, this is what you did, and you can improve if you see that rate slowing down or stopping.
It's very close to the front entrance. I mean, you pretty much have to walk past it.
There's actually, I would never say that we got this from, but I'm just thinking now back to this story that I read about We're Perfect from the 80s, like the early days. They actually had their call center for questions and comments right in the middle of the bullpen, so that engineers and people and product managers around would kind of be forced to overhear the conversations that customer support was having with their users, and not because people would just be waiting to hear what users said, but kind of as a feel that we're all in it together.
Yeah.
And unless we all work hard to make the product better, we're stuck with it.
There's a company called Qualtrics which actually takes that a step further, and if the volume of calls to their call center gets too high, everyone's desk starts ringing, and there are like alerts and gongs in the office.
Okay. Yeah, I guess we could do something crazy with people's Pebbles vibrating out their wrist.
That would be cool. I bet you've got some folks around the office who could write that.
We've got some hack days that we'll definitely do some fun stuff like that. Actually, currently the hack that we're thinking about doing a little bit with Bluetooth LE is it's definitely a first world problem. So we don't have that much space. We're growing a lot. The office is pretty packed. We have only 5 or 6 conference rooms, and they have glazed windows on the doors instead of like see-through windows. So you're always guessing who's in which conference room, and we're going to build an app where you can actually detect based on where whose Pebbles are in the room, who's in each conference room. Like I said, first world problem.
That's great. Why not use your own technology? You have become something of a Kickstarter guru. I think there are some folks working on crowdfunded projects here.
I've only done one Kickstarter. There's many more people who've done more Kickstarters.
But there are folks here in the audience I know who've kind of come to hear your thoughts on crowdfunding.
I think crowdfunding, it's changed a lot even in the last 2 years since we launched, for better and for worse. I think that there's been a ton of examples of companies and people that have made amazing products and launched them through crowdfunding. There's different options now. It wasn't, at the time Indiegogo was starting up, and I guess Kickstarter to be honest as well. There's a ton of different options. People are doing really interesting things around crowdfunding. They're running their own campaigns. There's Crowdhoster or Crowdbooster where you can actually run your own crowdfunding campaign, kind of like AWS, where you just start it up and you don't have to be on someone else's platform. Yeah, it's pretty cool. I back a lot of projects on Kickstarter.
Oh, that's great. Do you view that as having payback to the Kickstarter community?
Slightly, and also there's just a ridiculous amount of cool stuff. I'm currently waiting on this paper airplane that has the little motor on the front, and so you can fly I don't even know if it's like servo actuated, but it's like a remote control paper airplane. And it was like $40. So hopefully we'll ship sometime in the future.
That's great. That brings up a point though about Kickstarter and crowdfunding. Do you feel, is your sense from your Kickstarter community, did people did people want the device, or were they supporting your vision? Were they just trying to get the latest cool gadget?
I'd say most people were. The vast majority were trying to do that to get some cool stuff ahead of everyone else. But even then, I think we won over some confidence to the idea that we're working on something from the future, and our backers were the ones who enabled that future to be made. So we went through this process where we would post updates every 2 to 3 weeks about our progress through our Kickstarter. That was always my favorite part of watching other people's Kickstarters. The updates, like how is production going, what are the problems, software, design problems, and I learned some lessons from other people's Kickstarters. I think one of the first things I learned was that you probably shouldn't change the design after launching a Kickstarter. I saw that happen a lot, and that was always something sad because 50% of the people would love the new design, and 50% of the people wanted the old one, and you just can't afford to make
What else were they buying it on? Like they had to look at something and that prototype design.
But it's weird, even down to like small changes, like tiny, minute things. People would, the internet is very vocal, and sometimes it speaks very strongly. We were happy though that through some complete luck of the manufacturing draw, we were able to make a product that looked quite similar to what we had promised, except for a couple little variants down the road. Some of the lessons we learned were about color promises. Man, did we learn our lesson there.
Yeah. I mean, you compare with Apple. Like, I think Johnny Ive has talked about how it's so hard to get that.
Yeah, who would have thought that white would be hard to make? But yeah, we walk around.
Apple spent years trying to do a white iPhone.
We promised to do 5 different colors in our Kickstarter campaign. In hindsight, probably we wouldn't have done that. Probably would have promised less.
Well, maybe it's because of ReadWrite's logo, but I am a fan of the cherry red.
I'm a fan of the red too. I have 2 Pebbles. I have a Pebble Steel. Well, I have quite a few Pebbles, but I wear 2 different Pebbles, a red one and a brushed stainless steel.
What's your thought on the attempt to make wearables fashion? Is that really the right way to think about them?
It's a completely valid point. It's something that you wear on your wrist. It's something that's very visual, that's out there. It's usually an expression, probably men's last chance to put like jewelry on their body somewhere. So I wouldn't dismiss the fact that fashion and style are extremely important. I think that as a small company, we're doing what we can. We are coming with products, fairly quickly on a rapid iteration cycle, and we're, I think, figuring out what we can do as a small company in this space to maximize how many people would be interested in putting something like this on the wrist. We're looking at customization as one of our major advantages. Before we create a product, we actually publish the 3D design files on GitHub so that anyone can download the external files and create their own straps or bands or bike mounts or bangles or covers or kind of like sticky wraps. One of my favorite stories kind of in the Pebble universe is this guy named Drew who started a Kickstarter after ours to make these snap-on Pebble covers. It's called pebblecovers.com. And he raised $13,000 on Kickstarter enough to buy a 3D printer. He was 16. It was his summer project, so he bought a 3D printer, started printing off hundreds, probably thousands of these things, and continues to sell them on his website. I think he earns $500 to $1,000 per month just selling Pebble covers that he makes in an evening on Paperbox. It's really cool.
Love it.
So you put this out on GitHub. You've taken a very different approach from, say, Apple, who has the made for iPod.
Yeah, so they do the same thing, but you have to like sign NDAs. We actually got the idea from Apple, since we are made for iPhone people. We signed all the NDAs and we did all that hard work, but we realized that it was pretty cool. Once you do get the design files, you can pretty much make stuff. Through Apple's program, you actually have to get each and every single item that you make approved by them, which is kind of annoying. But yeah, we just really need it tough.
And so you're not worried about charging like a licensing fee for.
We're building a platform. Our goal is to spread the Pebble OS message far and wide. That's why we're really happy with having like a nice entry-level price point into the market. That's why we're really happy that people and product, and there's people and products that are customizing Pebble to kind of make it their own. One of our favorite things to ask on Twitter is just like for people to take a picture of their Pebble. Everyone has a different watch face practically. And some people have different straps and different customizations that they've made. I think the World Cup's coming up. A lot of people are going to be wearing like watch faces that support their team, or even covers on top of their cover.
I wonder, before we take questions, I want to ask one question about the watch face designer you found in Poland.
Yeah.
And I understand he's now an employee, or is going to be coming on board
for
for
an internship in the summer. His name is Lucas, and he's written some of the top Pebble apps. If anyone has downloaded an app called Modern Watch Face, which is this beautiful analog watch that ticks around, but it also has traffic and weather information integrated into this classic watch face as well. It's very cool. Has over 60,000 downloads. Out of 400,000 Pebbles, that's a pretty high propagation rate. And he's coming out. He's in Wrocław, Poland. He's coming out to hang out this summer.
That's fantastic. So you're actually finding new talent to kind of bring ideas to Pebble from this community.
We hosted a developer hackathon in September where we flew some of the top developers, Pebble developers, out to our office to hang out. We got that idea from Twilio. Twilio actually told me, one of the developer evangelists there said, before they release a new API, they bring people into their office to basically try the API out and run it through the watch to see what comes out. And they just found that having that direct connection to developers, people who are like pouring their energy into the platform and making money off the platform as well, was really, really useful. So that's the cool part about being in the Bay Area. We learn from the giants that came before you. You can kind of take some of these really cool ideas and apply it forward.
It seems